Welcome to The Decision from Nashville EO, where you will hear the rest of the story after tough decisions were made by entrepreneurs who faced adversity and lived to tell about it.
Welcome to The Decision by EO Nashville. It's a podcast by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. We're talking about the stories from the heat of battle when we have to make a decision. Either we've got a problem or an opportunity or something in front of us that needs a decision, and how we go about making those decisions. A lot of these stories come from the forum experience. So, with us today is Mr. Joe Brannon, fellow EO Nashville member. Joe, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you guys for inviting me. I'm so excited. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, when this is the first time we've actually met in person. I think I recognized your face. I knew a little bit about your story, so we're happy to have you come and tell us.
Well, to your point, I'm really big in my forum, and I've got to get better at getting out and networking and being involved in EO as a whole. So when we
That's why we're here today.
Yeah, it's about
here
forum.
to actually talk about that with you, because we've been wondering where you've been.
Where the hell has this guy been? Is he really an EO?
This is
I don't know
actually
this
an
guy.
intervention. This is not a podcast for you. It was actually your forum sent
Are
us.
you real?
Yeah.
Lock the door.
And by the way, my name is Robert Hartline. I'm here on the show as well.
See?
This is what makes it fun.
I'm going to lose my job.
Well, it wasn't paid in the first place, so I guess.
I know. Well, I had that conversation with some of the board members the other day that I said, Robert and I you need to quadruple our salary.
Yes.
4X at least.
I want vacation time as well.
Inflation, you know?
Yeah, that's right. It's hard times, man. All right, here we are. So how long have you been in EO?
Joined in 2019. It was probably the best year to join when we came up on COVID just a year later, right?
Yeah.
So, joined right in 2019. First learned about it from Debbie Gordon in my first company, or one of my first companies back in 2007. She was running Snappy Auctions. She was a customer of mine. Yeah. You remember that company? Her and John Kepley. And I came to a lunch and kind of fell in love with the idea, and for whatever reason didn't join. And really rejoined because of forum and people that had been in forums, and to that point, I was kind of making a joke about it. But to your point, I don't get out and do a bunch in the, EO stratospheres, the events and things of that nature. But my forum has been just such a big part of my life the last 4 years and helped me through a lot of just big decisions. My business sells to a lot of brick and mortar merchants, and, we were just hammered during COVID. Really sad times. I mean, it was challenging to see them go through what they were going through. Lots of restaurants, and we all know what happened.
But before that, tell me about the business you had earlier.
Yeah, so
EO, the
kind
first
of
entrepreneurial, I guess, venture.
Go 30,000 foot. My first company I started was when I was 17 years old. I did ad specialty products. So anything you want to put a logo on, I did it. It was so much fun. You got to be creative. I bought a suit, started walking indoors, did a lot of golf tournaments, and really fell in love with the creative side of business. I sold that business, and I like to say, I got my first exit at 19, but only made like 10 grand. Didn't lose money, so that's good, right?
Yeah.
So I sold that company to my partner at the time, went to the corporate world. I really felt like I needed, just some corporate experience because I was green. I mean, I was ambitious. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I was green. So I started flipping some homes while I was in the corporate world. And to your point, the first business I started that I would call kind of a real business was I brought the first mobile billboard truck to Nashville, Tennessee. So if you remember those scrolling and rotating billboards that used to run around town, I guess it was probably 2003. I was still in the corporate world, went out, sold some ads on the truck that I'd purchased. Then I bought a second truck, left my corporate job. And I really fell in love with this idea of teaching entrepreneurs to start their own business. And so then I started manufacturing the trucks and manufactured them with another partner, and we sold them all over the U.S. and some international. Did that up until 2008. And it's a really important story for why I started the company I'm in today, because in 2008, things were going great. We were just shy of $5 million a year in revenue. So we'd built a really great business, or which I thought was a great business, I should say. So you fast forward, you get into August 2008, we start having the Great Recession occur. We didn't know it was going to be the Great Recession at the time, But the financial crisis overnight, all of my customers, my entrepreneurs that I was selling to and teaching to start their own business, depended on my finance relationships to purchase these trucks, and this business in a box, if you will. So had about $2 million worth of contracts, could not get them funded. And literally, I probably needed for them at that time. I probably should have joined back then because I could have really used it. But from 2008 to 2009, I tried everything to keep that business alive. Lost everything, went completely bankrupt. And it was, for about a month, I was, sitting there feeling sorry for myself. Maybe drank a little too much whiskey for about a month. I enjoy whiskey, but I was probably drinking a little too much for about a month there. And I told myself, literally, it was almost a month to the day later, I said, the next business that I create, there's going to be two things that I create. One, I'm going to build a product that not only helps merchants when times are challenging, or not only help merchants when times are good, but even more so when times are challenging. And the idea is I'm building more of a recession-proof business because my mobile billboard business, my local ads, everyone started canceling all their ads.
Right.
As soon as the economy went down, I couldn't prove my worth. And I wanted to build a product that I could prove to them every single week how successful our product was in helping them build stronger relationships with their business, with their customers, more loyalty. And that was the whole kind of genesis of the company I have today, which is textLiving. We also have a brand called TL Connects. It's all the same. There's two different divisions. One, I got back into my teaching of entrepreneurs. So now we white label our software, teach entrepreneurs to go out in their communities and build their business by helping others build theirs. And then, for 10 years, we just mainly went out bootstrapping, selling direct to merchants. And it's been a lot of fun.
So before that, like you lose the business, basically, you're trying to keep things together. You're going through bankruptcy. That would be a scary thing. How did you feel about what did it feel like? What was that emotional piece of it?
Really the feelings, they were raw, and to the extent, I think a lot of people with a lot of entrepreneurs have chips on their shoulders. And when you lose everything, you take all the blame. And, from an emotional standpoint, I was broken. I thought, because at that point, everything I had done had been successful. And everything I had done, I thought I was the reason, which I wasn't. My support, my wife supporting, my Christianity, that was a part of it. And, I started believing my own stuff, if you will, believing my own, I used to say I could outwork my stupidity. And I did that until I couldn't. And yeah, they were raw. And I think for me, I've got this ability to just forget that kind of stuff. It doesn't even feel like real. It's more of a story now to me than it even going back and feeling those emotions. I can't really even feel them anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's for entrepreneurs, having that as an asset for me. I can make decisions and be okay. I'm like, oh, well, that fucked up. Am I allowed to cuss on this one?
Yeah. We
encourage it.
We have an R rating, so we're good.
Okay. That got messed up, but then you just move on. And for me, that time in my life, in retrospect, when I reflect on it, it was the worst time. But my marriage got stronger from it. My business sense got stronger from it. So in reflection, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And it's, hard to think about losing everything, losing your house, the shame. The emotion I had the most was shame, right? And, overcoming that, it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Wow. And I've heard that kind of story before from people who've had hard times, that you learn more from failure, whether it's circumstantial with the economy or whatever, than you would from winning all the time.
Absolutely.
And having that cornerback mentality, I think that came up at one of our previous podcasts. It's this idea that, all right, I got burned for a touchdown, reset, new play. Yeah. I'm going to forget what's in the past.
Yeah.
So good for you. I'm glad everything worked out.
Did you move to Nashville at that point?
So I had already been in Nashville. I moved away from Nashville, moved to Johnson City, Tennessee, of all places. It was interesting. About a month after, as I'm kind of thinking, what are my next steps? And I had some crazy ideas. I'm like, I've been working full time since I was 14. I had multiple businesses, and I'm like, I'm just going to go buy a boat, move to Hawaii, and be a tour guide. That was one of the ideas. We had a dog that we had to go through all the shots and we had to quarantine. So that kind of killed that idea because, our dog was like our son. So that killed that idea. And I got a call from a recruiter because I used to be in the office products business in furniture and facility sales. And I got a call, hey, would you be interested in running interviewing to run a company for a guy? He's got about a $35 million P&L, about $10 million in the East Tennessee. And he needs some more technology to be brought into it. CRM stuff. This is back when CRMs were getting popular and never used a CRM. And I said, absolutely. Yeah. And so it was a weird experience because I don't have anything at this point. And this guy's got a jet and he takes me on his jet, brings my wife with me. And we go out to East Tennessee, see the office. And in retrospect, I look back, I was 20, maybe 26, 27 at the time. And I'm going to come run this $10 million P&L. And I look back, I'm like, what the hell was this guy thinking? Let me come do this. And I told him it was interesting. He offered me the job, good salary. I got profit shares, part of the P&L. And I said, I want to be just completely honest with you. I'll give you 2 years and I'll commit 2 years to you. But I'm going to be an entrepreneur again. I'm going to start another company, but I will give you 100% of my effort for 2 years. But I'll probably come to you on 2 years and 1 day, and I'm gonna be leaving. And the guy goes, he's a good old country boy, goes, son, you're gonna be making so much money with me, you ain't going anywhere. And I left, 6-figure job, and moved in with a friend. But God love my wife. Can you imagine? I've lost everything. I've got another 6-figure corporate job that I could probably stay at a long, long time. And I'm like, no, we're going for it again.
Well, the trip on the plane would probably give me enough energy to think about, there's something here. Maybe I can learn from you.
He's got more than a couple nickels to rub together, right?
Yeah.
I was like, how do I get my jet?
Right. Dude, I can't help it if when those opportunities come around, I am inspired.
Yeah, so
100%.
I'm guessing you learned a lot from this cat, right?
Ton. The guy was just. What was so interesting about him? He put great people around him and let them do their thing, and that's hard. He'd been running the business for 30 plus years, and I kind of just saw the way he led, and it was just this quiet strength that he had, and I was always impressed with that. He never he was a really smart guy, but he wanted smarter people around him. And he'd let you know that. He's like, I don't need to be the smartest guy. I need to put the smartest people around me and let them help me make decisions. I still got to, make the final decision as the owner of that company, which I think is a lot of entrepreneurs, right? Good entrepreneurs put great people around them.
Yeah. Turn them loose.
And they have the balls to make the decisions to, go all in.
Sure.
That's what makes a lot of entrepreneurs different.
Yeah. I'm not saying I'm a great CEO, but it took me a long time to kind of let go and ask other people, what do you think?
It's still a struggle.
Yeah. And then when you hear what they actually think, it's like, oh, that's a lot smarter than what I would have done.
Right. And it's hard to scale, right? When you're thinking about scaling and decisions, if you are the thing that holds your company back, you'll never, reach what your potential is. Mm-hmm. There's an interesting study I read, and I forget when I read it. I want to go back and find it, but no one would start as an entrepreneur if they really knew what the challenges are going to be. If you could fast forward 10 years and know all the things you're going to overcome, the likelihood of starting is almost zero, because 99% of businesses that start never reach $1 million. And of that 1%, none ever reach 10 million, which is really cool when you meet some of the people in EO, right? Because we're all 1%ers, and some of us are 1/10 of that 1% and some even bigger. And you're like, to get there, knowing how many businesses start per year that are not ever going to reach even $1 million in sales. And right in EO, that's our minimum. Yep. Which is pretty damn cool.
Yeah. We're a special group of people with a lot of problems.
It's more like a sickness.
It really is.
If you look at us, and if everyone knew the amount of time and energy that we all spend on therapy, it'd be like, really?
Robert referred me to a guy.
Yeah.
He's helping me out a lot.
Hey, we know people who know people that can
That's
help
right.
your, whatever.
The power of the network, and it's
Power of the
enormous in
network,
Nashville.
yeah.
It is.
And I guess you've been able to take advantage of that too. I mean, you have had a great forum experience.
Forum's been fantastic. Through some of these decisions, like, we were going through raising capital in 2019. Like, we had built a great company, but we hadn't scaled. Like, we were profitable. We started from scratch building a software company, which building software, I know you've built a software company as well. It's tough. I mean, I'm not a developer. I had an idea about a product. I don't know if there's a good product market fit, right? All these things, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to go hire a 6-figure developer and start building something from scratch and hope that someone's willing to pay me something for it and forego, me even being able to barely live while we build this product. Those are tough decisions to make. And, the first 8 years of this business, I wasn't in Forum. And then I got into Forum in 2019. About the time I'm getting in, we're going out to raise capital to scale. And in our business, we had done great. We had a very, very low attrition rate, which in the software world, like if you have customers paying you month in, month out for years, you've got a solid business. Now you just got to figure out how to scale it. And scaling's tough, especially when you charge a low price in software, right? Yep. That's why a lot of software companies raise tens of millions of dollars. You need those economies of scale to really just get the engine and get it really, pumping. So we were like, let's go raise some capital. Got a term sheet in February of 2020, a really, good term sheet. And, we were going to be raising at that point. It was going to be what we would consider a Series A in the technology world, like $2.5 million. Term sheet comes in March. I'm in actually Mexico with some friends, and we almost didn't get to come back because they were starting to shut stuff down. Literally a week after we got back, you couldn't fly anywhere. Yeah. And the term sheet got retraded. The deal died about 7 times, all the way to the point of, and my forum was involved every step of the way for just tons of emotional support. The things I was going through, a lot of them hadn't experienced that exact thing, but in different ways. So they were able to help. And you fast forward, it took July. We're about to close the deal. It died. I literally presented and got the board approval and everything, or shareholder approval. And it died again after I already had approval. And I've got $250,000 in legal fees that are over my head. If the deal doesn't close, I'm got to get this deal closed. I'm either going to have to lay off employees. It would have just been, I don't think we ought to went bankrupt again, but it would have been damn close. It would have been tough. And somehow we were able to close it. And I remember going to Forum, and I was emotional during this time. I literally ended up getting full body itches, and stress doesn't necessarily bother me outwardly, but internally my body was just almost shutting down from the stress. And they just helped me think through it, how to solve the problems and just how to think about them. And it was, I don't know what I would have done without them, because I don't typically ask for help. It's, I wish I had less pride, but as the CEO, a lot of times you're the one, people look for you to make the decisions. And by having that forum, I was able to go be vulnerable and really just share. I don't know what to do. I've got to figure it out, but I don't know what to do. And not having that, I don't know where I would have went.
When you did that experience with your forum, did you get coached before your presentation? How did you go about presenting to the forum? Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because I think that's something we overlook when we're bringing an issue to our forum in the manner that we present it to them, so we can get some good experience shares. How was the process for you?
So we did interestingly enough, a couple presentations over the 7-month period. Like, I was probably taking up too much of the time of the forum because it was just, we were so in it. And there was a couple of us in our forum, obviously having challenges with COVID. So it was kind of all hands on deck, lots of presentations about how do we solve these problems. And definitely was coached. And I look back and all the different presentations that I went through, the one I remember most was the last one when everyone wanted the update after we closed. That's the one, you kind of remember the most, because I kind of forget about all the bad stuff, right. Which is, but I do remember that specifically, we weren't coaching on deal terms, right? It was just more about how to navigate all of this uncertainty. And it was all new for all of us because of a global pandemic, right? How do we navigate the business stuff at the same time of navigating what if you don't get this capital? What decisions you got to start making? And those kind of questions that we had to ask ourselves. And it was, to me, the coaching during that time was a lot different than it has been, since that time, because it was more thought-provoking questions to help us figure out. It was less experience shares on some of this stuff because we didn't have it. It was really good thought-provoking questions by the forum and by the coaches when we were doing it, which for me, that is one of the best ways I learn is asking thought-provoking questions, and vice versa, people asking me thought-provoking questions. So for me, that's what I'm going to remember most.
Yeah. Now, how did it pan out? So you got the money. I'm
not bankrupt.
did the assumption about how to scale, did it come true for you?
So it was interesting. We closed the deal July 14th. I think the money came in, 7 days later, paid the legal bills. And our business was built on outside sales reps, W-2 sales reps that I would train, and they would go out into their market and they'd meet face to face. Well, we had raised this capital, and I remember the guy said, Joe, I believe in you, but this business may not be around in a year, because our whole model was outside sales reps meeting face to face. And we work with small business owners, and getting them to show up to a Zoom, it was tough. Not to mention, a lot of them were shut down. Like 40% of our revenue, we had a record month in March because we're a communication platform. Everyone's using the communication platform to help their business. Then they started getting shut down. The government telling them they can't open their doors. And so now they're calling and saying, hey, we either got to cancel or we got to pause. So we lost 40% of our revenue between April and June. About half of it came back. The other half, unfortunately, and you're hearing these just sad stories every day of customers like, I've been in this business for 20 years and I'm just not going to reopen. And we heard that day in and day out. And we didn't lay off anyone, but we couldn't go out and sell. And so we literally went through the rest of 2020, about mid through 2021, before we could start scaling up and hiring and going out and face to face. And we were profitable and went to being unprofitable during that time. And we had to shift. I started thinking about the future during this, during 2020, and I presented to the new board that had come on with the equity we had raised, and I'd pitched white labeling the software, because what I was thinking about is I loved working with entrepreneurs, and it's also more capital efficient to teach someone that has skin in the game to go out and build their own business. Margins may be a little bit smaller, but we had enough scale at that point that the margins would still be okay. And so that 2020 is when we started reimagining the business. We launched our white label platform. We didn't launch until 2021, end of the year. And now we're starting to scale. We grew 70% year over year after from 2021 to 2022. This year we'll be up about 60%. And we're still just kind of doing our kind of tweaks and things to really scale. We've made a couple small acquisitions, and we're positioned now to really scale. We still have our problems, right? We have most companies trying to build. Our two biggest issues have always been our two biggest issues: human capital and real capital. Because in the big scheme of things, we still didn't raise enough money to go really scale a business. But we're profitable now, and things are good.
And this transformation in the business would not have likely happened if COVID didn't exist.
We would have been still probably scaling the same way.
Yeah. And scaling with a sales team is not easy.
It's not easy. It's expensive.
And it's incredibly expensive.
Yep. And it got more expensive after COVID.
Of course.
Hiring sales reps, W-2, the whole economics of hiring people. I mean, inflation, hyperinflation, and it was a thing. It was tough.
How many times in our lives that we get an obstacle, a mountain that we think is too steep, too big, whatever. And if you just put some frame around and go, all right, how is this opportunity now? And a lot of times it's right in front of us, but that first instinct is, oh my gosh, business over. What are we going to do? We've all kind of been there, and it's good to have a group of people that are suffering too,
Yeah.
Now, I had a form that these guys were murdering it because they had something that people wanted. And I was like, that something must be nice.
Yeah.
But that's what to me, some of the best entrepreneurs are the best problem solvers, right? When you get these just what look like potentially insurmountable issues, I mean, that's when you get to work. And quite frankly, that's where I thrive. I love it. Like, a little bit of chaos is not bad.
Well, the way we started this conversation about what entrepreneurship actually is, it's solving problems. I mean, you're going to have to solve problems no matter what you do. You don't know what's coming. And when I was doing mentoring, moderating Catalyst forums, I would always tell these guys that as long as you're comfortable being uncomfortable, you'll be a great entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It's just always going to be that way.
Well, and I started having this mindset of like, unless something happened to my brain, God forbid, like no one can take my experience from me.
Right.
Unless, I get really sick or something, but no one can take my experience. Therefore, everything's just learning. And getting stronger and getting stronger. And you look at some of the great entrepreneurs. I mean, I just turned 40 this year and I wake up every day feeling behind. Like I still feel behind. I'm not where I thought I'd be at 40 in my entrepreneurial journey. I'm proud of what my team has built. I'm proud of where I'm at, but I'm not where I thought I'd be. But I think that's part of being an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Like complacency is not a word that we have in our vocabulary. It's like, no, we got to keep driving. We got to keep building because we want to become better humans. And we use entrepreneurship, or I use entrepreneurship as my way of, that's how I show my growth. Part of it's my identity, good or bad. The therapist might say that was bad. I should have other identities, but I'm like, maybe get a new therapist.
Get one that works with entrepreneurs,
right?
You're not going to take that out of you.
No, exactly.
Well, I'm curious about this. When you were doing that struggle, what impact did that make on family?
Well, if I didn't have the foundation, like my wife's the rock of our family, always has been, always supported me. We've been together since I was 15. Started dating when I was 15. Wow. That was probably the best decision I ever made, right? I made a decision, and it's just clear as day. I remember I told her mom, we weren't even dating yet, I'm going to marry your daughter. And I'm like, she probably thought I was nuts. Probably still thinks I'm nuts at times. But literally, I knew I was 14 when I met her, and I'm like, I'm going to marry you. And I tend to chase things until I get them. And she was the hardest sell I ever made. But the loyalty that she's shown to me in the crisis, it sucks. But she trusts me enough, even after losing everything, to say, you know what? I'm putting it in your hands. She works in the company now. So, and we've had our challenges, but we've chosen to grow together. And, for me, we were raised in church together. Well, I got in church because of her, actually, because she was in church and I wanted to be around her. So I went to church, and we had this great pastor, and he did a very good visual. He said, in relationship, and this could be a business partnership, this could be really any relationship, but he was talking about marriage. He says, you put something at the center of your life. He was talking about God, but put any common goal at the center. And if you're working towards that common goal, you can't help but get closer. Mm-hmm. You work against each other. One person's working towards a goal, the other one's going against it. Guess what happens? You grow farther apart. That could be anything. We went through, we wanted to have kids. One of the reasons she came to the company is we knew we were going to have lots of doctors going to the IVF. We chose that can drive families apart. That can drive spouses apart. But if you're working towards a common goal, you're going to grow closer. And that pain actually made us stronger. The pain of losing everything made us stronger. And that's like, we've got a great family outside of our core, but when I wake up every day, I'm still trying to prove that I'm worthy of my wife. And that's been a phenomenal driver for me. And like, everything's made us stronger, but that's a choice. It's easy to just sometimes quit on a relationship because of the pain. And we've been lucky enough to respect each other enough, love each other enough. Cause look, love's easy. Falling in love is probably pretty easy. Staying in love's hard.
Yeah.
Especially through your 20s. Like, think about your 20s. We were a young married couple. I'm entrepreneurial. I go from, making a lot of money to losing it all. And, she stuck around for it. And I'm so grateful.
It's one thing that I tell entrepreneurs, like, they can be your biggest asset, far and above coaches, other tools of the trade of entrepreneurship. Because all we are is energy. And when they are that bystander watching us from a close distance, they see us in our emotional roller coasters.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember every year is the same thing. I crushed December because I was in retail, right? And the January comes. And I'm like, oh, it's me. And she was like, it's January. It's January. Reminder, it's January. Okay, this is what happens every year. Oh,
let me explain the calendar to you, Robert.
And our emotional roller coaster is attributed to our sales. It just is. And 100%. when they remind us or like almost put a mirror back at us, and then, you know, my wife in particular has been real good at helping to manage my emotions and kind of guide me along, which has been helpful because we put them through hell. You know, Think about the fear that they go through when, like, sometimes we don't have a muzzle, right? So we're talking about, woe is me. I don't know what we're going to do. And then sometimes we forget, oh, shoot, I should have said that to her. Yeah. You know, I need to keep that, right? But it is helpful. And you know, are you in, is she in spousal form?
She's not.
No. Yeah. No. Yeah. Spousal form, just as a reminder to those listening, is a great place for your spouse to be so that they can know they aren't alone. Because it can be very scary, especially if someone's new in entrepreneurship and they're used to that safety, they're used to that security. And, you know, scarcity conversations in the home are very detrimental to anybody in the whole company. Yep. You start having fear conversations about where the check is next month, and you're going to create more scarcity. You're going to create a problem that may not even exist.
You know, one thing that's been interesting in our relationship that we learned from losing everything is we don't need a whole lot for us to be, you know, happy in our relationship. We don't really need anything, right? We need each other. And you know, a lot of this stuff we do, it's for our purpose. It's because we want to build and that's great, but we take that risk. But after losing everything, I never want to lose everything again, but I know I've felt it. I know what it feels like. And I know I learned from it and I became a better person. I became a better husband. I became a better CEO. Actually, I got way more pluses on the plus column than I did on the minus column from losing everything. And we quite frankly realized a lot of the stuff we do for, not as a whole, but I think society as a whole does it for what people see them as, not for what is their purpose or what makes them happy. And happy is not the answer in my opinion either. But knowing that, like, I can take more risk.
Yeah. Well, you've done it.
She's there. I mean, she's going to be there to support me.
She's there.
She may not like it for a bit, but
yeah, it won't be fun.
Maybe
right?
one less handbagging for the next couple of years. You know, sorry, Chanel.
But so, you've built it. You've built it back from ground up. Not everybody's done that. That's a special thing.
I appreciate that. It's a lot of great people around me. I've got my team. Almost everyone's been with me 10 plus years. My lead developer, been with me for 11. Second
What's
developer.
Number again?
You're not getting his number.
So, Joe, here's a question for you. So, let's say you're a brand new entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
You hear about EO, you join. What would be some good steps for a newly minted EO member to get the most out of their EO experience?
I'll speak mainly to Forum because that's where I've invested most of my energy. Again, I am working to get more involved in some of the great events that are provided and the great, education is provided. But for me with Forum, the number one thing with anyone kind of looking at coming into EO is vulnerability and transparency. Because if you're coming in with a wall up, and these people are sharing their deepest emotions in these forums. You get to know them at a level that your family doesn't know you, your closest friends don't know you, and they're dealing with some of the same struggles. You think about, am I going to make payroll during COVID? COVID's just a good example of how forums were needed more than ever. And really the reason EO was created, right? I didn't know what my friend was dealing with, right? The story of EO. And if you're vulnerable, people know, and they can also call you out when you're, what, the last few months you've said this, but your actions are showing a little different. And I love that because I respect my forum mates enough to know that like they have my best interest in mind. We've been together. All of us been together. We've got a couple new members for 4+ years. And if I have a real issue, they're the people I'm calling first. One-on-one. And then I'm obviously going to bring it to my forum. So for me, transparency and vulnerability is what's going to make you get the most out of forum, in my opinion.
Yeah. Joe, thanks for joining us. If you are an EO potential member in Nashville, Tennessee, you have a business, you're in entrepreneurship, and maybe, just maybe, you're feeling a little alone because the journey can be very lonely. You can visit eonashville.com, learn more about our wonderful organization of 345 members here in Nashville, Tennessee, one of the biggest chapters in the United States of 17,000 people across the world, EO organization. If you are interested, please visit us. Thank you and have a fantastic rest of your week.
Thanks for listening to the Decision Podcast by Nashville EO. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.